Welcome to the Black Women's World Podcast. Welcome to Black Women's World, where Black women vibe and thrive together. And if you ain't a Black woman, you'll get to know at least one. Because this Black Women's World, my Black woman's world, is whatever I say it is, simply because I am. So welcome, SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers. We're here for you. Much love and peace. Shout out to all of my SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers from all over the world. Because of you, Buzzsprout sent me an end-of-year report stating that Black Women's World Podcast, that's the BWWP, has grown 468% in 2023 alone. Yes. All I can say is thank God and thank you. We have been listened to or downloaded in 43 different countries, in 802 cities, and we have 6,845 downloads. I am so grateful for that and for you. Well, hey, y'all, welcome to the BWWP. That's the Black Women's World Podcast. I am your host, Tracy McNeil, but more affectionately known as TracyMac. You know, it is so encouraging when I got that report and the numbers, and Buzzsprout is just one of the outlets that I receive those types of reports. And it is just so encouraging. You know, it makes me want to shout out loud, and yet it makes me want to remain being mindful of what I say, because you never know who's listening. I wrote in one of my books, you never know who's listening. You never know who speaks your name when you're not around. But remember to be kind, to be excellent, to be generous, to be authentic. And while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary. So keep listening. Let me know. I love the fact some of you even reach out and let me know that you are vibing with me. And for our new listeners, I encourage you to check out some of our earlier episodes, especially the one called First of All, and another one called A SistaNista Is, because Black Women's World Podcast is for Black women, my SistaNistas. And it's also for those who love us. So if you love Black women, you're a SistaNista lover, and I welcome you too. Well, you know, have you ever heard somebody say, what's your sign, or ask, what's your sign? Usually, when I used to hear that question, what's your sign? I think about back in the day. You know, I didn't have a whole lot of club experience, but when I did, that was one of the main pickup lines. Hey girl, what's your sign? I mean, after all, does anybody remember the song, Float On, Float on? Hey, my name is Larry. And then each one would go into the what their sign was and what it means and what type of woman they're looking for. But I was a church girl, so we weren't even allowed to talk about zodiac signs. I mean, I knew I was a Pisces, but even knowing seemed to be taboo. So it wasn't until I was like around 9 or 10 years old when I saw my grandma reading the horoscopes in the newspaper. And I was shocked that she didn't instantly disintegrate or bust hell wide open, because that's what I thought was going to happen. Now, my grandma went to church. She attended Emmanuel AME in Portsmouth, Virginia. But my parents, on the other hand, were saved. You know what I'm saying? It was no this, no that, not that either, and definitely none of the other. And that included zodiac signs. So some years later, I learned to love reading. I loved reading books, anything I could get my hands on, fiction, nonfiction. You know, I just like knowledge and seeing things from other people's perspective. If you ever want to know anything about anybody, especially an author, read their book. It tells a whole lot about who they are, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. But back then, when I first embraced reading and learned about comprehensive reading, that's when I discovered that comprehensive reading involved dictionaries, encyclopedias, because no matter what you were reading, if there was a word you didn't understand, you grabbed a dictionary. If there was a topic that you wanted to see if it was true or how true it was, you grabbed an encyclopedia. And in my house, it was really nothing but Bibles, concordances, lexicons. So I had the luxury of grabbing, those two. So I was quick to look something up. And I remember very sneakily, sneaking, looking up the word zodiac. Because I'm like, what's my sign? I know it's Pisces, but what does that mean? So I was like, okay, zodiac. And I read it says it's in astrology, and the signs of the zodiac refers to 12 specific constellations of the zodiac that the sun passes through. And I'm like, okay, this got to do with the sun. And then it says a person's particular sign of the zodiac is one that this is the sign that the sun was in when they were born. And it's a belief in astrology that a person's personality can be predicted by using the signs of the zodiac. And I was like, oh, that's the problem. The saints don't like prediction. They like prophecy, but they don't like prediction. So then I remembered, wait a minute. The zodiac signs got to do with the sun and the stars. And because I had been so indoctrinated in biblical readings and teachings, I remember, wait a minute. The three wise men, didn't they follow some stars to find the baby Jesus? And then I thought about the psalmist David when he wrote, when I consider the heavens, the works of your hand, the moon and the stars, thou hast ordained. And because of the music buff that I am, that how I remembered that scripture was Richard Smallwood's choir recorded Psalms 8, and Sharice Nelson McIntosh sings it. I know at least in the 2001 version. What is man that thou art mindful of him? And oh my God, she sings the mess out of that song. And it just, and then when they go into We Magnify Your Name, forever, they be singing that. But anyway, I thought about it and I said, wait, they talk about the stars and the moon in the Bible. So anyway, I looked at my sign and saw that I was Pisces. And I was like, well, it can't be all that bad because for the most part, this thing is describing pretty much who I know I am right now. And that was a young age. And I was like, I'm that. And there's so much we can understand about ourselves when we know, the sign that we're brought under. Now, zodiacs and horoscopes tend to go hand in hand, but I lean on the zodiac sign more so than the horoscopes because I'm not going to wait for somebody else to tell me how my day is going to be. That just ain't me. But there's so much more we can understand, like I'm a water sign. Those who are Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, we're water signs. And one of the predictable characteristics, some of them are that we tend to be shy and sometimes more introvert, reserved and sensitive, but we are highly intuitive and we're very in tune with our feelings. And we make natural empaths. We have the ability to tap into emotions of people all around us. And we're nurturing. We're the ones that love, but sometimes we got to be careful because we got to discipline our wills to help because we can be taken advantage of and definitely taken for granted sometimes. And, so, those things kind of, pattern, even some of our occupations as we're prone to be better counselors and therapists and healers, holistic healers, life coaches, pastors, clergy, social workers, writers, DJs, musicians, music journalists, music teachers, music enthusiasts. And it ain't wrong because I'm proof. I've held most of those titles I've mentioned and still hold some of them. And they are very suitable for me. So I was like, why is it taboo? What don't they want me or us to know? But what's your sign can refer to other things, especially road signs. They weren't taboo. We learned how to read maps and understand legends while we were in school because road signs, we needed them to travel. What do they point to? We've stopped looking at paper maps. If you remember, if you're of a certain age, remember Rand McNally? You could stop at a gas station and get a big old Rand McNally map based on where you were traveling. Now we rely on GPS, a voice, a digital map, and we still rely on road signs. But back in the day, I remember riding shotgun when somebody else drove, because I had to read the map. Or I remember maybe at least 10, 15 years ago when I had to use MapQuest all the time because I traveled a lot for work. And most times I was alone. So I really had to rely on MapQuest and to some degree memory. But now I punch that GPS in with a quickness. But, you just sometimes remember where to go. You don't need a map all the time. You don't need a sign all the time. But, they are extremely helpful. But, I can remember where to go. And just like back in the day, we could remember phone numbers. I know I had at least 30 to 50 phone numbers just in my head. We just knew we had to memorize phone numbers. Memorization went right along with the rotary phone. But, I can still remember my grandparents' phone number, especially after it went all numeric. because really back in the day, phone numbers used to have letters in it and street names. But my grandparents' number was 757-399-5477. I can just call it off just like that. They don't call it because my grandparents have gone on. Annie and Joe Rawls, rest in peace. They passed away over 20 years ago, and I can't help you if you call that number and it's somewhere in Portsmouth, Virginia, where the police can't help you. I remember my parents' phone number from 1982, 919-447-1697. Now, mind you, since then, down in the coast of North Carolina, the area code changed to 252 much later. But anyway, I could remember those numbers and remember those signs where you didn't always need a map. But when it comes to road signs, even when we rely on GPS, it's still telling us what sign to follow. The sign is not the destination. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but the sign is not the destination. The sign is pointing you or telling you how to get to the destination. It'll tell you to take an exit, but you won't take that exit until you see the sign. I almost always turn my GPS on anytime I'm driving more than 10, 15 miles away from my home. It's helpful. Number one, it avoids traffic accidents, traffic jams, and road construction. And also, if you use the feature, it'll tell somebody when I'm driving as to why I may not be responding back to a text or a phone call. Now, I don't like it when I'm going and the GPS offers me a faster route, but it's taking me down a 2-lane highway in the backwoods of North Carolina. Man, because back there you start seeing Confederate flags and speed limits will switch up on you so quick. The sign will say 55 and 0.3 miles later, it'll switch up to 15, talking about some farm equipment entering the highway. And getting stopped may not end up being as favorable for me as it is for those who don't look like me. Back in the day, I'm going to tell you, I had a need for speed. I don't know why. I just used to speed everywhere I went. Just zoom, 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 zoom. And at one time, I had 11 tickets on my record at one time. I got my last ticket in Little Washington, North Carolina. I don't even know if they call it Little Washington anymore, but that's what we called it. Little Washington, North Carolina. And I was driving, I used to have a Mustang, but of course, because of the tickets, I had to go and get rid of that joker. And me and my mom started sharing it. And then I got a Ford Festiva. So I got my last ticket driving to Little Washington, North Carolina on a Ford Festiva, and I had 10 tickets at the time. And I was going so fast that I had no idea there was a state trooper in front of me. And he dropped back to stop me. And after he got behind me and stopped me, he said, "I saw you come up on me like a bat out of hell." He said, "And I didn't know these little cars could go that fast." And I was like, "Man, I'm sorry." And on the inside, I was like, "Just give me the ticket and hold the shade, please. Just hold the shade." And then when I end up having to go to court for the ticket in Little Washington, the judge told me, he said, "If you ever come in my courtroom again, I will make sure you never drive a car again." And I was like, "Oh, Lord, does that mean license or you going to put me somewhere?" I don't know. Because, you know, you never know in these North Carolina cities and counties. But I straightened up. I straightened up because then I started toting my nephews around and it wasn't safe for me to speed. But not only because of him and because of my nephews, but keeping it real, the only car insurance company that would insure me at 21 years old with all them now then 11 tickets total was Intigon. And my premium was more than my mortgage. Whew, boy, I tell you. But a few years later, I got married to Owen and he put me on his insurance. Even after I warned him, I was like, "Man, I got a whole lot of tickets." He was like, "I got you, babe. I got you." Poor fella. When he got that bill from Geico. Oh, Lord. But anyway, I do not like it when a GPS offers a faster route because it goes down those back 2-lane highways. I remember one time in the past couple of years, I was going to a conference and to participate in the conference. And I got that offer from the GPS. It said road construction and for me to leave Highway 95, 795, should I say, and take Highway 58. And being from where I was headed, I know that way like the back of my hand. But I was running behind and I didn't know how long the road construction was. And with me running behind, and I don't like to be late, I was pressed for time. And so I went on and took the offer, the faster route. Well, it was a 2-lane road, windy 2-lane road in the country, riddled with speed traps, switch ups, from 55 to 15 in 0.3 seconds. Trump signs and rebel flags in folks' yards, right beside the fresh egg sign, collard green sign, free firewood and watermelon. No, ma'am. No, sir. I don't want none. I'm like, God, keep your eggs, collards, and watermelon. Because God, what David said in Psalms 52, God said, if I was hungry, I wouldn't tell you. So please and no thank you. I'm just a pilgrim and a stranger traveling through your barren land. I've got a home in yonder city. Lord, I'll do the best that I can. That was a song we used to sing back in the day. I'm a pilgrim and a stranger traveling through this barren land. I got a home in yonder city. Lord, I'll do the best that I can. You start singing, that's not an old Negro spiritual, but you start singing them songs when you winding through them roads, But, I normally thump my music and my bass is kicking. That's my company when I'm driving, but not then. No way, not that day. I put on some soft rock music, some James Taylor. In my mind, I'm going home to Carolina, I ain't want no trouble. I had it down to elevator volume, elevator music volume. But I was already too far gone in the trip to turn around. And I mean, hell, what was I going to turn around at? Whose driveway would you use? But anyway, I was committed. So when I finally did see the Highway 70 East sign in Kinston, North Carolina, that was very familiar with me. I traveled that 1,000 times with it and not exaggerating. I was so relieved when I saw the sign. I got on Highway 70 and I had been on it for about 10 miles. And then here's the GPS offering me a shortcut. And I was like, I felt like Miss Sophia when Miss Millie said, Miss Sophia, she didn't know her name. She said, you want to be my maid? And Sophia told Miss Millie, hell no. So when the GPS offered me a quicker route, I was like, hell no. And I kept on booking right down Highway 70 East like I knew like the back of my hand. Plus, it's 70 miles per hour until you get to New Bern, North Carolina. And it's a straight shot all the way to the beach, which is where I was heading. And by the grace and mercy of God, I arrived safely to my destination because the signs had led me there. And I had been invited to the conference by my dear white sister friend, Claire, who is not only an ally of social justice and all things inclusive, she's also a foxhole accomplice out loud. And she tries to recruit other accomplices as well. And the work she's doing is awesome. And the theme of the conference was basically asking white folks the hard questions about racism and doing what it takes to break up that fallow ground to at least start doing the work and having the necessary conversations. And at that conference is also where I met the Dr. Reverend Velda Love. She's an esteemed womanist who is doing absolutely amazing work. And she is amazing on a personal and a professional level. And during the meet and greet of this particular conference, the people were discussing, how are you doing? Where are you from? And we're sharing, exchanging information, getting to know one another. And, where'd you drive in from? Even if it was just from New Bern to Atlantic Beach, because you had to drive in because the closest airport is in New Bern, which is about 30-35 miles away from Atlantic Beach. But those who came from the RDU area, the Raleigh-Durham area, we began to talk about, our trip there. And several of them began to say how much quicker the trip was because they took the 2 new routes as the GPS suggested. They took the first route The same route I took, but they took it comfortably, while I drove the whole way gripping the steering wheel, white-knuckled, my ears up to my shoulders, tensed up, never taking a full exhale. And it took way longer in my mind than the GPS said. It wasn't worth the shortcut to me. They took the second route, and they arrived much faster than I did. I didn't take that option, and I arrived later. Not late, but much later. Isn't that something? How we all may have access to the same route, see the same signs, but for several reasons, Black folk, SistaNistas, may have to be later because of the challenges other folks will never, ever have to consider. We all saw the same signs, but for the sake of my own safety, I chose to take a longer route. What's your sign? Have you seen a sign that you just couldn't take? Now that's road signs. We have other signs, health signs. As a national mental health first aid, youth and adult certified trainer, we teach people the signs and symptoms about mental health. You also know signs and symptoms about your physical health. One of the questions I answer in that training when people say, what's the difference between a sign and a symptom? A sign is what other people see, but a symptom is what that individual feels. We have sign language for those people who are deaf and hard of hearing. You know, I couldn't watch a lot of TV growing up, and I remember one summer I taught myself sign language using the World Book Encyclopedia, the 1978 edition. I'll never forget it. It's brown and it's got black on the top of the spine and on the bottom, and the word World Book is written in gold and the spine is brown. I remember that because that was all I had to do. And I still know to this day my alphabet and sign language. So if anybody's deaf or hard of hearing, if we run up on each other, we can talk. I'm going to be real slow. But we can at least learn each other's names. You have signs for your senses. How you taste, how you feel, the sign when something's hot, how you feel if something's cold. What you see, what you hear, is it too loud? You can recognizing signs. Signs provide direction, instruction, protection. And I remember asking God for a sign. I was going through something. I said, Lord, just send me a sign. Just give me a sign. You know, in the Old Testament, whether it be Gideon, different people in the Old Testament, they wanted a sign. You know, and you ask for a sign, and I promise you're going to get it. But maybe you were like me, because when I asked for a sign, immediately I got the most signier sign of the signest signs in all of Sign Town. I mean, it was a sign of all signs. You hear me? Sign Town. Yes, sir, you hear me. But I didn't want to believe the sign because I never thought that would be my sign. Because the sign came from people that I never thought would hurt me. Even though I don't think it was intentional. I asked God for the sign and I saw it. Then there have been other times I got the signiest signs in all of Sign Town, and it was a good sign. But because of upbringing and religious mindset, I didn't think I was good enough for that to be my sign. So I missed it. Then another time I got the signier sign of the signiest signs in all of Sign Town. I couldn't detour. There was no detour for me to take, so I had to take it. And I'm glad I did. Because one of those signs, or several of those signs, have guided me to where I am right now in life. But I didn't want to believe some of the signs. Like I said, because I didn't think that or they, those nouns, people, places, or things, I didn't think those things would be my sign. Some of that is ego. Because even if you think too less of yourself, imposter syndrome, that's also ego. But I learned not to ask for signs that I'm not ready to see. Let me repeat that. I learned not to ask for signs that I am not ready to see. And then as I continue to evolve and grow and think about different things, I was reminded of a scripture that says, these signs shall follow them that believe. Another way of saying it, these signs or wonders, when you look at that in the Greek, these wonders, or should I say in the Hebrew, these wonders shall follow, accompany those that believe. And I was like, wow, stick a pin in that and I'm going to come back to that. But signs can leave clues, offer direction, warning, provide instruction, provide evidence or testimony. A sign can be a demonstration. A sign can lead to manifestation, but only if the language is clear. Can you read the sign? Do you have a good vision for the sign? Now, I can see in the daytime, but driving at night with astigmatism, them signs start to look kind of funny. But can you see the sign? Not only visually, but can you see the sign as far as the language? Can you read the language? Because you can only see the sign and read the sign if the language is clear. You've gone down the street and seen sometimes where road signs are badly battered because of weather or because of poor workmanship. The little white tape or whatever they put on that starts to peel off over the years and is not replaced. Because sometimes we do need a sign, and I think we can ask for a sign when we need one. But there's no need to ask for a sign if we're not going to use it, or if we don't know what the sign is pointing to. The sign is never the destination. The sign points to the destination. And we can't always use the same signs as other people because we're simply not the same. We may not be going to the same place. And even if we are going to the same place, much like my road trip I just told you about, they couldn't see my challenges. And I couldn't imagine their comfort. Sometimes we know our own way, and we're looking for a sign when we already know the way, because you've already experienced it. And you can be open to new things, especially think about it. If they build a new interstate that makes a way shorter, then great. Be open to taking a new way. But sometimes when you know a particular way, that's the way you need to take. And you don't need to use the signs. But you got to play that by ear. You got to be flexible and be open. Sometimes we are looking for a sign and we can't see it because you have become the sign. Baby, you get to become the sign for somebody else sometimes. You can't be steady looking all your life when you know the way, and somebody comes along and you act like you don't know the way, and all the while you can show the way. That goes back to what I was saying, is these signs shall follow those that believe. These signs shall accompany them. You know, there's a song by Norman Hutchins when he says, I feel a breakthrough coming your way. It's a mighty move of God. He's signs and wonders, miracles to perform. God's going to bless you if you keep holding on. And of course, say, just hold on, a change is coming. I feel it in the air, in the atmosphere. Just hold on, a change is coming. And then he gets to the part, a move of God is on the way. We all want to see a move, but sometimes we need to walk into a level of maturity and spiritual intelligence where we become the move. Sometimes the sign you're looking for is you. Sometimes we are the sign. Sometimes we look for signs, and sometimes the sign is in the mirror. especially when it comes to the signs of the times. And I ain't going to get into all that on this particular podcast. But while religion shows us a man-made portrait of God, spirituality holds up a mirror. Can you become a sign? You become a sign when you have been faithful to follow the signs you've been shown. When that GPS tells you what to do, if you ignore it, whole thing be saying rerouting, trying to help you. The God in you, we're made in God's image, created in God's image. So we have God in us. That God in you is your natural GPS, your global positioning system to let you know where you are in the world. And you figure that out by posing questions to yourself every now and then. Who am I? Who am I here to be? What am I here to do? Who am I here to do it with? What am I most passionate about? And passion is that bold enthusiasm. And that's how you make sure your eyesight is good for your sign. Make sure you have the right language for your sign. Even if you use sign language, even if you've got to translate it, even if you know the road the way it's supposed to be. Because you can't keep letting religion and those things that have crippled us mentally. Most people don't even think. They've been groomed and grooved to believe whatever the preacher says. And I'm not saying you can't believe it, but if you don't go search this stuff out for yourself, then all you'll have is when it comes to your relationship with God, you'll go through the ways of religion. And all religion ain't bad, but the parts that have been crippling and that have blocked our signs, you'll go through life letting religion show you a man-made portrait of God. But it's time to shift and allow spirituality to hold up a mirror. So I ask you here and now, baby, what's your sign? I'm TracyMac. I'm grateful, and I love y'all for real. Much love and peace.
An Amazon best-selling author with an Art Book Club Incorporated 5-star rating and your self-discovery companion, TracyMac is setting positive change ablaze with her 3 incredible books. Do you lead? What if there was a resource specifically designed to sharpen thought systems and optimize wisdom for the keen mind of our C-suite professionals, progressive leaders, and social change agents? Well, there is. Thought Systems, How Progressive Professionals Nurture Their Wisdom. TracyMac has brilliantly created a comprehensive collection of wisdom principles for those who lead, ultimately benefiting those who choose to follow. Your solution has arrived. If you are ready to live an amazing life of change with sustainable results and measurable success, get your copy of 1 or all 3 of these awesome books where fine books are sold today to start your journey.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, brought to you in part by TracyMac Solutions for Life Institute, Coaching and Training Services. No doubt you have enjoyed being in our world, and it doesn't have to stop here. Head on over to blackwomensworld.com. This is my personal invitation to you to stay connected with me on social media and more. I'd love to see you there, and I'm so grateful you came to be with me here. Invite someone else to join you in our queendom next time so they can feel the vibe of our tribe of SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers too. Remember to be kind, be authentic, be generous, be excellent, be grateful, and while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary, because that's just what SistaNistas do, on purpose through mission with passion and compassion. It's a Black woman's world, baby, and you, my SistaNista, are proof. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and your host, TracyMac. Wherever you are in the world, may you love and be loved by somebody. Peace.